please welcome to the stage Mr. Andrew Baxter.
Thank you, darling. Thank you very much. Yeah. Good-o. How are we going, guys? How are you all? Good. Just sat at the back, just absorbing the energy. There's a bit of energy going on out there. This Team 6, are they pirates or what? Arr, absolutely. You could hear it. The angry pirates or happy ones. Good stuff. Well, it's great to be with you here, guys. How many people learned something in the last session with Jamie there? Awesome. That's terrific. It's such a powerful strategy. As someone that's been around markets now for about 16 years, it's one of the key strategies that I employ. It is a terrific way of generating cash flow. And cash flow is so important because if we think about life, everything we do requires cash flow. Coming here today, either in a cab or if you had to put fuel in your car, parking in the car park, be it getting a newspaper if you really wanted to depress yourself, maybe a coffee a little bit later on, all of those things required cash flow. So it's such a powerful strategy to use. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go through in just a little bit more detail that strategy, approaching it perhaps from a different angle. And you may think, well, you know, we're pretty much up to there with covered calls or share renting, as we call it at the Academy. But I'll just give you one hint on that. Has anyone seen the movie Vantage Point? You know, when the president gets shot and they have the story through, I think, about 7 or 8 different people's eyes, and everyone saw the same event but found a different way of describing it. And often when you're trying to learn something, seeing something from a few different angles is a great way to anchor it and to make sure that you get to absorb it. So we're going to spend a few minutes on that, then we're going to talk a little about how we can help you with the 21st century broking side of things. So with that in mind, one of the things I'd really encourage you to do is take notes as well. It's always a good thing to do to take notes to help you remember. Always good to get a bit of a memory jog, although I heard a bit of an upsetting story the other day. A friend of mine takes a lot of notes, and his wife was just putting his suit up in the wardrobe, and a piece of paper fell out of the pocket and it had Betty Sue written on it. So he's down reading his newspaper, having his breakfast, and she's clipped him around the ear and said, what's this Betty Sue written down on this piece of paper? What's this all about? He said, well, I went to the races last week and it was a horse. And she's gone, okay, no problem. Anyway, about a week later, he's having breakfast again. This time she comes down and she's got the frying pan. Crack! And he's like, geez, what was that for? He said, your racehorse just called. So just bear in mind, if you're going to take notes, make sure they're the right sort of notes. Okay, good. We've got everyone moving. What I want to do, just very briefly, first of all, is explain a little bit just on how an option works in terms of the covered call strategy. You've just been going through, and I want to give you an example of buying, say, 5,000 oil search shares. This is a trade we did for some clients a little while ago, and I like using real examples as well as the ones that you're working through currently. Now, if we bought 5,000 oil search, by the way, does anyone know what oil search does? There's a bit of a clue in its name if you're not sure. Got it? Good stuff. So it's involved with the oil industry. Now, at the time, these shares were trading at around about $4.20. Okay? Now, 5,000 oil search shares would cost you about $21,000. So that's a reasonable chunk of money. However, as Jamie just alluded to, if you used a margin loan, instead of needing $21,000, you'd probably only require about $8,000 if you used a margin loan. So it makes it a little bit more affordable for all of us to do this sort of trade. Now, with covered calls, one of the disadvantages that people often talk about is the fact that you may, what they say is, lose your shares. Has anyone ever heard that expression? Oh no, I don't want to do that in case I lose my shares. And that leads us to 2 or 3 key points that we need to talk about with the strategy. Firstly, trading and investing is probably 80% psychology. And so we've got to be very, very mindful of the language that we use. So if I said, for example, I lost my arm, or I lost my wallet, or I lost my phone, that automatically has a fairly negative connotation, yes or no? So if we said we were losing our shares, how are we feeling about the strategy already? Not so good, right? So instead of saying we're going to lose our shares, what I want you to think about instead is, instead of losing my shares, if I bought the shares for $4.20 and in this particular example sold a $4.50 call option, in other words, I'd receive a premium, but I'd be required to deliver my shares at $4.50. You guys all with me on that? Okay? I wouldn't be losing my shares. What I'd be doing is converting from being in the shares to converting to cash. Now just try that for a moment. If you had a choice of losing your shares or converting to cash, which sounds the most appealing? Okay, so the language is really important here. Secondly, if we bought the shares for $4.20 and sold them for $4.50, what have we done? Made a profit. So instead of losing our shares, what we've done is converted to cash for a profit. Is that a good, bad thing? Right. And don't forget, if we sell an option, we receive what? Premium. And let's say in this case we receive 20 cents. So what we've in fact done is been paid to convert to cash for a profit. Is that good or bad? Right. So when you hear someone saying, I wouldn't want to use this strategy because I may lose my shares, feel free just to check that there's a pulse under their carotid artery, first of all, and then try and explain that actually you've just been paid to convert to cash for a profit. A little bit of a different slant on things. But herein is a really important point, and please do note this down because this is serious. Whenever you choose the strike price or the price of the option that you wish to sell, if the share went up to $6, how would you feel about having to sell them for $4.50 if they're worth $6? There's a few murmurs. Got a few words to describe that, guys? Feel free, it's an adult room. Yeah. Some people get a little bit antsy about that. Now, my advice to you is simply this. You got out for a profit, and in life, you can never go broke making a profit. Try it. Okay, so you can never go broke if you make a profit. So even though you could have made more, don't beat yourself up because it's all about making a profit and moving on to the next trade. So in my example here, what I want to show you, because a lot of people get quite confused as to exactly how the options market operates. So I'll just swing over to this side and spend some time with you guys. Hey guys over here, you good? Don't think I was neglecting you. I wasn't. Okay, what we're going to do is have a look at that same example. So we've bought our shares for $4.20 and we've sold a $4.50 call option for 20 cents. Now, rule number one when you sell an option is firstly, sell a strike price that you'd be happy to sell the shares for. Rule number one. Okay. Number two, as far as the rules are concerned, is generally you sell with about a month or so to run. I generally don't sell options with much more than a month to run because there's something called time decay. And as an owner of the shares and a seller of the option, you want those options to expire fairly quickly. So right now, it's pretty hard to sell options for December because we've only got a week and a half till expiry this month. There's an early expiry because I think it's something called Christmas coming up in a few weeks' time. So this time we're going out to January, but as just a regular rule of thumb, you only go with about 4 weeks to go, so you always go to the next month, but never past the next month. So in my example here, I'm looking to receive 20 cents. So I'm the owner of the shares, and I've just written a call option, and this will help you sort of crystallize some of the terminology. So what I need is a volunteer that's got 20 cents for me, please. Two-way session today. Who's got 20 cents, guys? There's moths and everything jumping around in here. What's going on? Okay. Thanks very much, sir. What's your name? Deepak. There you go, Deepak. There's your options contract. So give him a round of applause. This guy has already got in the game. Now, think about what's gone on there. I owned the shares, and I just decided to rent them out because I needed some cash flow. So I've got my 20 cents. Now, I can sense that you guys in the room are absolutely ecstatic. They go, my God, this guy's a genius. He's just made 20 cents. I can't believe I'm listening to this. Let me just mob the stage. All right? Now, obviously, in Australia, an options contract is over 1,000 shares. Now, I had 5,000 of these shares, so sorry, Deepak, I actually need $1,000 because 20 cents times 5 times 1,000 is what my income would be for the month. Now, just have a think about that for a moment. $1,000 is a lot of money for some people, not for others. But what could you do with $1,000? Let me give you a couple of benchmarks. It's about 35 cases of VB, if that happens to be a benchmark in life. or ladies, a nice pair of Christian Louboutin shoes, or a down payment on a 3 Series BMW, or whatever it might be. My point is, $1,000 is something that's worth having. Just a quick show of hands. How many people could spend $1,000 right now without breaking into a sweat? Easy. Who could spend more than that? We like the overachievers. That's good. Okay. So let's see what we can do with this. Now, Deepak, not only is he sitting in the front row, and you invariably find at an event when people sit in the front row, they're the really keen people. He's already involved in the market. Now, he's pretty smart because he sat at the front, but also he's realized that oil prices have been doing what over the last while? Okay, so these shares in Oil Search are probably going to go up in value a little bit too. And as a result, the option that Deepak bought for 20 cents is now worth 50. Which brings me to volunteer number 2. Who's got 50 cents for me, please, guys? Somebody around here? Okay, good stuff. It's okay, thanks very much. What was your name, man? Tamara. Tamara, just 1 second, Tamara. Now, Deepak, you've now sold your option for 50 cents, which means I need to pass that on. And Tamara's now picked it up. There you go. Congratulations, well done. Okay, now think about what's gone on. And what you've just seen here is precisely how the options market works. Someone that owns the shares writes a contract and receives a premium. You're with me so far? And they sell it in the market to somebody. And that person in the market in this case happened to be Deepak. Now, Deepak could have held on to that option and at some point converted into the shares. He could have bought the shares if he wanted to do that. But most people that trade options never actually intend to buy the share. They just want to trade the price difference. So Deepak took something from 20 cents and turned it into 50. So how do you think he's feeling right now? I'd say it's going very well. Drinks on Deepak when we're done. Okay? Now, Tamara's also pretty smart, and she's sitting in the front row too. You notice there's a correlation building here? Now, she knows that Oil Search is a reasonable stock, is in the oil industry, and in fact, it's now worth about $6. Woohoo, indeed. We like that. Notice how emotional people get when they make money. Isn't it great? Now, so that option that you paid 50 cents for is now worth $1.50. How are you feeling? How are you guys feeling over here? Right. I don't know how you're feeling. Let's explore this for a moment. Guys, you mind just hopping up on stage just for a moment? Deepak and Samara, just come up over here. Bring the option with you because it's a very valuable piece of paper there. Now, here's a key message, and I know it seems like a crazy... Let's get to the middle of the stage. That's where the action's at. And you see all this crazy. He's got counters and everything. And it's all good, isn't it? Look at that. Yeah, nice picture, that, isn't it?
I like
it. Okay, so let's just have a look at our example here. Firstly, as the owner of the shares and the person that rented them out, did I make some money? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, now Deepak traded the option for 20 cents and turned it into 50. So did he make money? Yes or no? Yes. Now Tamara bought the option for 50 cents, turned it into $1.50. Did she make money? Yes or no? So hands up if you made money. That's us, by the way. Okay, hands up if you didn't. Now there is a massive message. And please do take this message away because it's an incredibly powerful one. Markets are not a spectator sport. If you want to make money, you actually physically have to get involved. You can't sit there and hope. It's not the gift, oh, I hope I get $1 million landing in my lap. You actually physically have to get involved with the market. So if you're not making money out of the stock market right now, it's probably because you're not actually in it. Okay? Take an action step, as these guys did. Give them a round of applause because we love action takers. There we go. I'll pass that one over there. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, guys. Well done. Now, notice in our example here, so we had someone that owned the shares, and then there was someone that was walking that options contract through the market, doing the buying and selling, and that's what a stockbroker does. So basically, that's what we do all day, every day. Now, we don't physically walk around and do that because these days everything is electronic, but I wanted to show you how simple and how logical this process is. And it's amazing when you start to demystify something that you actually feel far more comfortable about doing it. And if you feel more comfortable, you probably will end up doing it. How many people from what they've seen today would now be open-minded to trading covered calls? Okay, good stuff. And just out of interest, is anyone sort of on the margin at the moment, they're still not decided on the strategy? Because the key thing here is this thing could be pretty time-consuming. Who's busy in the room? Who's got 25 hours in the day? I mean, come on, we all fill a day in with stuff, don't we? So what we've got to find a way of doing is doing this in a way that's not that time-consuming. And I'll show you exactly how long or how time-consuming this process is when you're working with the right support team, and that's what we do through the brokerage business. Now, firstly, I do need another volunteer. So, remember, participation, action takers get the best rewards. That's right. Thanks very much. Sorry about that. Your name was? Hendrik. Sorry? Andrew. Hendrik. Thank you, Hendrik. Now, I need a second volunteer, and before you all leap out of your seat and go kick it to me, this volunteer is going to be qualified. They're going to either have a stopwatch or a watch with a second hand that they could time something. So could I have someone that could kindly volunteer and do that for me, please? Thank you very much, sir. What's your name? Gareth. Daryl, I beg your pardon. I'm on fire with the names, aren't I? So, Hendrik and Daryl. Okay, Daryl, when you're ready to time, let me know, and we'll see how we go. Yep. Hendrik, hi, it's Andrew Baxter from Halifax. How you doing?
Not too bad, thanks.
Good, mate. I'm just going to give you a quick call regarding these 5,000 Oil Search shares that we've got. I know we talked about generating some cash flow, so what I'm going to suggest is that we sell 5 Oil Search $4.50 calls for January. Would you like me to go ahead and do that for you?
Sure thing.
Good. So just for the record, and just to clarify, Hendrik, what we're going to do is sell 5 Oil Search $4.50 calls for around about 20 cents. Is that correct?
Correct.
Terrific. I'll get back to you and let you know when we're done. How do we go, Darren?
52 seconds.
52 seconds. Wow. Here's a quick question. Does anyone not have 52 seconds available this month? Okay, so we need to be very, very mindful that this stuff isn't as time-consuming as we'd probably think it would be looking in from the outside. Because when you've got the right kind of support, you're working with the right team, you understand the strategy, suddenly it becomes more appealing. Now, a couple of things out of what we just talked about. Firstly, Hendrik, did you notice when we took the order, I repeated it back to you?
Yes.
Now, that's something that's very, very important. Like, you go through life and you learn a lot of lessons, and I'll talk to you a lot more about these on Monday, but one of the key lessons I learned from my father, doing some carpentry work with him, he always used to say, if you're working with timber, measure twice and cut. Must have spoken to you guys before too. And there's a lot of common sense in that statement. So when I built my broking business, I've got over 62 brokers that trade for our clients. And I can tell you right now, every time you place a trade, they will repeat the order back, just as I did then, because it means it removes the risk of making a mistake when we place the trade. Now, is that a logical thing to do? And that comes from experience, because experience is such a good teacher. And we know that by holding your hand and walking you through this process and making sure that those little slip-ups that many people make, You might go online, for example, and you bought 100 contracts instead of 10. Sheesh, bigger position than you thought. You're definitely active in the market if you do that. You can manage those risks out of the equation. That's something that's very, very important. So 52 seconds, and that was nice and leisurely. We weren't pushing it, were we? So it's not a time-consuming process. Now, on this particular trade, if we go back and actually look and see what we did with Oil Search, we actually rented our shares out for, I think it was 28 cents in reality, which was a 6.6% return for the month. Now, different shares give different rents, because the more volatile they are, the bigger rent they pay. So stocks like Oil Search is a share price that tends to move around, so we like to focus on those. Stocks like Telstra are stocks we generally don't do anything with, simply because there's no income from it. It's like owning a really crap house in a really bad street that nobody else lives in and no one wants to live in. You know, you don't even have crack addicts living in there. It's that bad. So there's no premium. You might better edit that one out, I don't know. But the point is, there's not much premium in that because it's a street that no one wants to live in. And you can understand that when you look at the performance of the stock. Here's a company that was valued at about $9.30 not too long ago is worth what now? $3 and change. So you go back to what Jamie was just speaking about sourcing businesses that are popular, that are growing and making money. That's where you focus your time. And that's what our job is to do, is to guide you into those different areas to make sure that you're playing in the right part of the market. Now the second thing over here, bear in mind on our example, if the share price went over 450, what were we obliged to do? Sell the shares. What if the share price stayed under 450? We get to keep them. Now let me ask you this. If you've just rented your shares out this month and you picked up, in this case, 28 cents, 6.6% return, and you didn't get exercised on your shares, what do you think you might feel like doing next month if you've got a spare 52 seconds lying around? Maybe going again. So we're just simply building a process that we just roll out month after month, and I've got to tell you, it's not that exciting, but geez, you can make some money doing it. And bear in mind, the market isn't a place for excitement. A lot of people get involved with the market because they like the cachet of saying, I'm a trader. Don't ever treat it like that. Treat it as a business that generates the cash flow to go and have fun using the money, not as a place for entertainment in its own right. Does that kind of make sense as a bit of a tip? Because the more unemotional you are about your money, the quicker and the more you will make. Very simple rule. And it's a law of attraction. You know, if you say, you know, it's just a law of attraction. You've got to try and be detached from it, if you like. So I mentioned before about this trade that we could have used a margin loan instead of buying the shares using our $21,000 of cash. And had we used the margin loan, our return would have been around about 18% on our money. Reasonable return? Now the big issue with margin loans, you've got to pay interest on it. The interest is maybe about 7 or 8% a year at the moment. If you just made 18% in the month, do you think you'd be too worried about paying 8 and a bit % for the year? Okay, and the interest is a tax-deductible expense as well. Now on this, if we're using borrowed money, and Jamie mentioned about using protection, if we bought some shares, and we'll just stick with our $4.50 example here, what we could do is buy a put to insure. And Jamie mentioned about the cheaper insurance where you buy, you know, a little way down, say you buy $4 insurance or something like that. That's great because it gives you a good amount of cushioning to the downside. The flip side of this, of course, is the fact that it eats into your profit. So you don't always use insurance. Use insurance when the time is right. When the market's a little bit more volatile, now might be a good time to consider that, simply because the risk is to the downside. But one of the strategies that we've developed, if you like the idea of leverage, and it's a pretty unique offering that we put together. It's 100% lending. Now most people when they see that go, geesh, that sounds risky. Who thinks that will be risky? Borrowing 100% of the money to buy shares. Well, if you did it without knowing what you're doing, it certainly would be. But what we do is insure our shares what we call at the money. So let's say we paid, I don't know, $9 for our shares. What we would do is buy a $9 put option. That means it doesn't matter if the share price falls to 0, our loan is totally insured. Because some of you would have seen stories like things like Storm Financial. Who's followed that debacle in the paper? And that's where people have had a margin loan but totally no protection in a very, very reckless strategy. If in this case you've bought the shares for $9 and you've bought a $9 put, well, if the share price goes south, all you do is just go, look, I don't think I want to play this game anymore, and you take your insurance policy to the market and go, can I please have my $9 back? Thanks very much, and then you pay your loan off. And that's a very, very important part of risk management, because trading isn't just about making money, it's about being able to manage risk at the same time. Now, of course, buying insurance is something that becomes fairly expensive if you're buying what we call at the money here. So in the strategy that we talk about here with our 100% lending, let me give you a couple of key little points on it. What we might do is buy a put option or insurance that runs for, say, 4 or 5 months. So we bought our shares here for $9, and we bought a put option that runs for about 4 or 5 months. Now, when we do this, what we try and do is time it around a dividend time. Because you know, if you own certain shares, you get paid a dividend for owning them. Only certain shares. So what we might say is, look, we're holding these shares, and generally before a dividend, the share price moves up a little bit. We collect the dividend. And what's the dividend on most shares at the moment? Well, on a good yielding stock, it's probably about 3%. That money will go some way to covering our cost of insurance. That's step number 1. Step number 2, every month we're going to sell a call option. So we'll only sell it with a month to expire. The next month we'll sell another call option. The next month we'll sell another call option, and so on and so forth, on the basis of which it will cover our insurance cost. That means we've removed our downside risk. Do you just understand that we've removed the downside risk if we own insurance? And we've also paid for that insurance by a combination of the dividend and the calls that we've sold. So what that means is we've got insurance, and that insurance costs us how much if we've offset the cost? It's free insurance. Is that all right? And secondly, what we've got is a downside risk that's covered. If the share price falls, we're okay. And thirdly, that just means one thing. We're left to open-sided up end in the stock price. Who likes the idea of that? That's a bit of a tricky one to explain on a Saturday evening, especially when you've been sitting in here for a while. But this is the sort of bread and butter stuff that we'll start to do with you as your broker through the academy. Who likes the idea of that? Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into any more detail on that sort of stuff, because right now you probably feel that someone's put a fire hose in your mouth and they're sort of cranking the water in and going, swallow some more water, it's getting a bit hard. Who feels that way right now? Okay. That's human nature, and that's fine. I understand that. So that's probably about it as far as content is concerned. I could talk to you for years on this because it's something I'm extremely passionate about. But what my job is tonight is just to make sure, firstly, that the cornerstone strategy of covered calls or share renting is totally anchored down and you understand it. The second thing is to provide you with the facility to be able to trade them. That's what we do with our broking service. So we're going to give you all the opportunity to get involved with 21st Century Broking via Halifax Investment Services. Who's a client of Halifax right now, by the way? Wow, good stuff. Thank you, guys. We appreciate your business. And for the rest of you that are about to become clients of ours, we very much look forward to working with you too. But in all seriousness, part of the reason that we work with the Academy, and most brokers would give their right arm to have the opportunity to do this, is because we extend that duty of care, that complete handheld message that you've learned from the home study and from your time here with Jamie today, and actually help you apply that practically in the market. So you're going to be dealing with brokers that are patient. You're going to be dealing with brokers that have got experience working with newbies as well as more experienced people in the market. But most importantly, those simple rules, like with Hendrik, where we just simply repeat the order back and make sure those mistakes don't get made. That's our job, to give you that time leverage so you don't have to spend all day in front of the market.